It was supposed to be just another morning on daytime television. A celebrity guest, a few polite questions, and a quick goodbye. But not today. Today, something was different. You could feel it in the lighting, in the quiet tension behind the cameras. Something was coming, something big. And then she arrived. Meghan Markle, former royal. Global icon, the woman who decided to come to The View. Not because she was invited, but because she requested it. Her team called it urgent, a need to set the record. Straight. To take back control of her story, and for the producers. It was a dream, a guaranteed headline, a viral moment waiting to happen. Meghan took her seat, every detail of her appearance carefully curated, hair shining under the lights, smile. Flawless, posture, calm, confident, prepared. Across from her sat Joy Behar, unshaken, unfiltered, quietly. Dangerous behind that smirk that said, "I've done this before." Joy leaned in. Voice, cool. Almost playful. "So Meghan," she said, "you've been making quite a few headlines lately. Tell us what brings you to our little corner of daytime television." Meghan smiled, the way only someone media-trained can smile. "Well, Joy," she replied, "I felt it was important to come on a show where I knew I'd get a fair hearing. The View is known for tough questions, and I respect that." Joy nodded, that familiar gleam in her eyes. The one that told longtime viewers this was about to get interesting. "Oh, we definitely ask tough questions," she said. "But first, tell us about your new project. It's focused on women's empowerment, right?" Meghan straightened her shoulders. Her voice softened into something earnest, practiced, but passionate. "Absolutely. Joy. After everything I've experienced, I realized I had a platform. One that could help women who feel voiceless, who've been silenced by powerful institutions. This project is about giving women the courage to speak their truth, no matter what." Joy let those words hang in the air for a moment. Then she repeated them. Speak their truth. There was a subtle shift in her tone now. "That's an interesting way to put it," she said. "Because I have to ask, do you think there's a difference between speaking your truth and speaking the truth?" Meghan's expression didn't change. Not yet, but the room felt colder now. Joy didn't wait. "I mean, during your interview with Oprah, you made some pretty serious allegations about the royal family. Allegations that, if I recall, were later clarified by your own team." Meghan's smile flickered, just for a second, but that was all it took. Millions of viewers would catch it. She leaned in slightly. "Joy, I think there's been a lot of confusion about what was said and what was meant. The media has a way of twisting things. As I'm sure you know, when I spoke with Oprah, I was sharing my lived experience, my truth." Joy nodded slowly, but she wasn't done. "Your lived experience." "That's fair," Joy said. "But let me ask you something else. What about the women who worked for you? Former staff members who filed complaints about bullying. Shouldn't they have the right to share their truth too?" The studio held its breath. Meghan's face tightened. "Joy, I find it really disappointing that you would bring up unsubstantiated claims that have been thoroughly debunked. These were smear campaigns orchestrated by the palace, designed to discredit me, because I was trying to modernize an institution that didn't want change." Joy leaned back slightly. "I'm not repeating lies," she said. "I'm asking questions. Based on public reporting, that's what we do. And are you saying that asking you about workplace complaints is silencing you? Because right now, you're on national television, saying exactly what you want. So who, exactly, is stopping you?" Meghan's tone sharpened. "This is exactly the problem," she said. "I came here in good faith to talk about real issues that affect women, and instead, we're rehashing tabloid gossip and palace propaganda." Joy's voice rose slightly. "Tabloid gossip, Meghan. These were official complaints. Real women, real names. Real stories. Are you saying every single one of them was lying?" The tension in the studio was now a living thing. You could feel it in the silence. Meghan's composure was starting to shift. Her voice lost a bit of its softness. "When you're a woman of color," she said, "trying to navigate a predominantly white institution, you're going to face resistance. People don't like change, and the media often helps tear those women down." Joy raised her eyebrows. "Are you suggesting that asking you about your behavior is racist?" Meghan hesitated. "I'm saying it's complicated," she replied, but Joy wasn't having it. I've been doing this a long time, she said. I ask tough questions, no matter who sits in that chair. Presidents, pop stars, royals. It's not about race. It's about accountability. Meghan's face flushed, her jaw clenched. Her hands were no longer resting calmly. You want accountability? She snapped. Let's talk about the accountability of the media, of institutions that silence women, of people like you, who use their platform to question everything I say instead of supporting the work I'm doing. Joy didn't blink. Double quotes. Oh, so now this is my fault, she asked. You came on this show expecting an easy ride, a platform to say what you wanted without challenge. But that's not how this works. You don't get to pick and choose what part of your story people are allowed to talk about. Meghan sat back, clearly rattled. That's not what I'm doing, she said. I'm trying to have a real conversation about real issues, and instead, I'm being dragged through the mud. Joy's voice grew sharper. These are your actions, Meghan, your decisions, your track record. And if you can't handle questions about it, maybe you're not ready to lead any kind of movement. The words landed hard, and for the first time, Meghan didn't have a quick reply, just silence. The studio was holding its breath, and this was only the beginning. The smile was still there, but it wasn't the same. Not quite. Something behind. Meghan's eyes had shifted, and no matter how carefully she held her posture, the tension had started to show. Her voice, still calm, had lost some of its warmth. Her hands, once gracefully folded in her lap, were now clenched just slightly. Meghan had walked into this interview with a plan to reclaim the narrative, to highlight her new initiative, to remind people of the woman behind the headlines, but that plan was slipping away. And Joy Behar, she could feel it. She didn't raise her voice, she didn't interrupt. She just kept asking. The questions no one else dared to ask, the ones that dug deeper, the ones that didn't go away when the guest smiled, because Joy wasn't just interviewing a celebrity, she was challenging a brand. And that brand was Meghan Markle. Joy leaned in again, her tone still steady. Let's be clear, she said. No one here is saying you haven't faced real challenges, but when you talk about women being silenced, what about the women who say they were silenced? By you, the audience was still. Everyone in the studio was listening now, not just with their ears, but with their eyes. Watching Meghan carefully, watching her balance begin to wobble. These reports, Joy continued, weren't from tabloids. They came from your own staff, people who worked closely with you. They said they felt bullied, dismissed, ignored. Meghan's voice came fast. They were false, she said. Untrue, fabricated to discredit me. The palace was protecting itself. They didn't like how outspoken I was, but Joy wasn't backing off. Were they all lying? She asked again. Every single one of them. Meghan took a breath. You could hear it catch slightly in her throat. They were manipulated, she said. Used by the system. That institution didn't want me speaking up, so they found a way to shut me down. Joy looked at her, long and quiet. You keep saying people tried to silence you, she replied, but here you are, on national television, saying everything you want, no one's stopping you. So who exactly is doing the silencing? For the first time? Meghan's voice cracked barely, but it was there. This is what happens when a woman of color speaks her truth, she said. She's attacked, picked apart, questioned over and over, until she's painted as the villain in her own story. Joy nodded, not in agreement, but in understanding of what was happening. She'd seen it before, the shift from defense to deflection. She let a silence stretch, just long enough to make the weight of the moment settle. Then she spoke again. Meghan, I've been doing this for decades, Joy said. I've interviewed people from all walks of life. I ask tough questions. Of everyone, presidents, CEOs, pop stars. This isn't an attack, it's accountability. And the moment we stop asking questions, we stop doing journalism. Meghan's expression darkened. This isn't journalism, she said. This is character assassination. I came here in good faith too. Talk about empowering women, and you've turned it into a public shaming. Joy's response was instant. Oh no, she said. Let's not rewrite what's happening here. You came here to sell a message, a carefully controlled story. You thought we'd play along, but when the questions got real, you fell apart. Meghan's voice rose. I didn't fall apart, she said. I'm defending myself from unfair treatment. Joy, eyes narrowed. Then why does it feel like every question that doesn't go your way is suddenly unfair? You want to talk about female empowerment? Let's talk about what it really looks like. Empowerment means owning your actions, facing the tough conversations, and not running the moment someone challenges your version of the story. Megan's breath caught again. Her eyes darted across the table, searching for support. But the other host stayed quiet, watching, listening, waiting then. Joy dropped the line that stopped everything. You've built an entire platform on being mistreated, she said. But what about the people you may have mistreated? Where's their platform? Megan froze. The words hit like a sudden gust of wind. She opened her mouth, then closed it again, and for a moment she just sat there, silent, still, exposed. She began. But the words weren't coming easily now. I don't think that's fair. Joy stayed quiet, letting the weight of the silence do the work. I'm using my platform to help people, Megan said at last. That's what I've always tried to do. Joy tilted her head. Your platform, she said, has become a microphone for grievance. And maybe some of those grievances are real, maybe even most of them, but when that's all people hear from you, it starts to sound like a brand, and brands can lose trust. Megan looked stunned, as if the one thing she hadn't prepared for was someone seeing through the polished image. I've been honest, she said. Joy didn't hesitate. Opening up about your struggles isn't the same thing as taking responsibility for how you treat others. And being scrutinized, that comes with the spotlight. It comes with leadership. You don't get to demand a platform and then complain when it asks questions. Megan looked around the studio, at the audience, at the lights, at the cameras, and for the first time since she walked in, she looked small, overwhelmed, cornered, tired. This is incredible, she said. I came here to talk about empowering women, and instead I'm being interrogated, judged, humiliated. Joy's voice dropped to something almost gentle. But that's the thing. Empowerment isn't about applause, it's about truth. And sometimes, the truth is uncomfortable. You want to be seen as a leader, then act like one. Megan didn't speak. She couldn't. The smile was gone now, and the cracks were no longer just under the surface. They were right there for the world to see, and the world was watching, because this was no longer just an interview. This was a reckoning. She wanted to leave. You could see it in the way her eyes flicked toward the exit in the way her hands gripped the edge of the chair. Just a little too tightly in the way her voice, usually so measured, so precise, had started to tremble. Meghan Markle had come to the view expecting control, a space to share her message, to clear the air, to own the room. But now the room was owning her, and the pressure, it was mounting, I think, she said finally, her voice tight and strained. This interview has gone far enough. She glanced at the camera, then at the audience, her jaw clenched. I came here in good faith to discuss important work, to talk about helping women, and instead I've been subjected to a character assassination. A low murmur rippled through the crowd. They weren't sure what they were watching anymore. An interview? A breakdown? Or something else entirely? Joy didn't blink. She leaned forward, her voice soft but sharp. Megan, she said, nobody's assassinating your character. I'm asking you questions, and if that feels like an attack, maybe the problem isn't with the questions. For a second, the studio was completely silent. No one dared to move. No one even breathed. Megan looked stunned, her mouth parted, but no sound came. Then she said something quietly, almost too soft to hear. You've made your point, she whispered. You got your viral moment at my expense. And just like that, she began to rise from her chair. But Joy wasn't done. Oh, no, she said, her voice cutting through the tension like a knife. You don't get to come on this show, make accusations, play the victim, and then storm off the moment someone holds you accountable. Sit down, Megan, the audience gasped. It wasn't just the words, it was the tone. Firm, unshakable, commanding. Megan froze. Halfway up, caught between anger and disbelief. Excuse me, she said. Are you ordering me to sit down? Joy didn't blink. I'm talking to someone, she said, who came on national television expecting praise, and is now panicking because she's finally being asked the hard stuff. I'm talking to someone you thought she could throw around words like lived experience, speaking truth, and expect that to shield her from any kind of real conversation. Sit down, because I'm not finished. And somehow, Megan sat not because she wanted to, but because there was nowhere else to go, nowhere to hide, not from the cameras, not from the cameras, not from the questions, not from herself. This is unbelievable, she muttered. The level of disrespect I'm being shown, it's shocking. Joy let out a dry, humorless laugh. Disrespect, she said. Let me tell you about disrespect. Disrespect is coming onto someone's show expecting them to be your personal PR team. Disrespect is throwing around accusations of racist. Moment someone challenges your behavior, disrespect is dismissing serious workplace complaints as nothing more than palace propaganda and then expecting everyone to just move on. Megan's voice jumped back in. Those complaints were investigated, she said, and they were found to be without merit. Her voice cracked slightly on the word merit. Joy leaned in again. Were they, though? Because, as far as anyone knows, the palace did an internal review and never released the findings. That's not a clean slate, Megan. That's damage control. And even if, and I mean if, every single complaint was somehow false, your response today tells me everything. I need to know how you handle pressure, how you handle criticism, how you handle the truth. Megan's face was flushed now. Not the carefully composed flush of a makeup artist. This was real, raw, visible. My response, she said sharply, is to being ambushed and attacked. How should I respond? Joy. Joy didn't hesitate. With honesty, with grace. With some recognition that maybe, just maybe, you're not the perfect victim in every story. That's not fair, Megan said quickly. I've been more honest than most people in my position would be. I've opened up. I've talked about mental health. I've talked about my struggles, and that matters, Joy replied. But talking about your struggles isn't the same thing as taking responsibility. You've built your entire imagine how others have mistreated you. Every interview, every appearance, every headline. But what about the people you might have mistreated? That question hit hard. And this time, Megan didn't answer. She stared across the table, the silence stretching between them like a canyon. She began, stopped, then tried again. I'm trying to help people. Joy tilted her head. And that's noble. But when your massage's wrapped in a story of constant victimhood, people stop listening. They stop believing. Because leadership isn't just about being heard. It's about listening to. Megan's face shifted. First to frustration, then to disbelief, then something close to desperation. This is incredible, she said. I came here to talk about women's rights, and I'm getting attacked by another woman. You don't understand what I've gone through. Joy's voice changed, now lower comma or double quotes. No, I don't, she said. I don't know what it's like to live your exact life, to face what you've faced, but I do know what it's like to be a woman. In a male-dominated world, I know what it's like to be questioned, dismissed, underestimated, and I also know what it means to stand up and say, yes, I got some things wrong. That's real power. And if you can't do that, her voice softened to almost a whisper, then you're not empowering anyone. The words hung in the air, heavy still, undeniable, and Megan. She looked tired. The fight, the fire, the flawless media mask. It was slipping, all of it, and she knew it. But she still tried one more time. You don't know what I've sacrificed, she said, barely above a whisper. You don't know what I've endured. Joy paused, then nodded. You're right, I don't. But what I do know is this. What I'm seeing right now is someone who wants the spotlight, but not the scrutiny. Someone who wants to be seen as a leader, but shuts down the moment someone asks for accountability. The silence was crushing now. No applause, no laughter, just the sound of everything unraveling. Megan sat back, eyes wide, hands trembling slightly, for the first time all morning. She looked like she wanted to disappear, and in that moment, it was clear. She had walked in expecting a platform. Instead, she found a mirror in what she saw. Wasn't what she wanted to see. The cameras were still rolling, but the energy had shifted. Megan sat silently, not defeated, but exposed. The image she had worked so hard to craft, the polished, poised advocate, was still there, but now it stood beside something else. Something raw, something real, doubt, vulnerability, humanity. Joy didn't gloat. She didn't smirk. She simply sat there, letting the moment speak for itself. Then, gently, she said, "This is the kind of conversation women need to have. Uncomfortable, honest, unfiltered, and if. It makes us squirm good, because growth doesn't happen in comfort." Megan slowly nodded. A tiny, almost imperceptible motion. Not agreement, but acknowledgement. The show cut to commercial, but by then, the moment was already viral. Clips would be replayed, debated, praised, and condemned in equal measure. But one thing was certain: this wasn't just another celebrity interview, it was a collision of image and reality, of brand and truth, and in that collision, a reckoning, one that would echo far beyond the studio walls. There was nowhere left to run, nowhere left to deflect, nowhere to hide behind words like truth and experience. Meghan Markle sat frozen in her seat. The lights overhead no longer felt flattering. The studio audience no longer felt friendly. The camera, always her ally, had become an unblinking witness to something she never expected. This wasn't empowerment. This wasn't promotion. This was exposure, and then, for the first time since the tension began, someone else spoke, a voice that carried weight, familiar, measured, unmistakably. Whoopi Goldberg. "All right," she said, her tone calm, her presence grounding. "I think we all need to take a breath." The studio exhaled quietly. Finally, Meghan turned her gaze toward Whoopi. "Meghan," Whoopi began, "I think what Joy is trying to say, and what some of us have been thinking, is that leadership comes with hard conversations. You want to talk about female empowerment? Then you've got to face the same scrutiny any woman in power has to face." Meghan nodded slowly, but she didn't speak. "You've shared your pain, your struggles. That matters. To answer for the things that happened on your watch, even if they were uncomfortable, even if they were painful, even if they don't fit into the version of your story we're hoping to tell." Meghan looked down at her lap, the tension in her shoulders. Now visible, her hands were trembling slightly, and then she finally spoke, soft, quiet, barely audible. "I didn't expect this," she said. I thought this would be different. I thought I'd be heard," she whispered. "Not picked apart, protected from the truth. You came in wanting to be seen as a champion, and maybe you are, but even champions have flaws. Even they make mistakes, and the ones who grow are the ones who own them." Meghan didn't argue. She didn't protest, didn't pivot to another point, didn't retreat behind buzzwords or pre-written talking points. She simply sat, and in that moment, the fight in her finally faded. There was no applause, no swelling music, no "I came here to help women, to talk about the work I'm doing, and you still can," Whoopi replied. "Difference. But you do have to be honest." There it was again, that word, honest. It landed softer this time, but deeper. Meghan looked up, her voice barely above a whisper. "Maybe I wasn't ready for this." Joy gave a small nod. "None of us ever are." Then silence again. Not tense, not hostile, but sobering. Heavy. It hung in the air like the final breath off a storm. That had finally passed. The other hosts sat, still, watching, processing. This wasn't the interview they had expected either, but it had become something else. Something unforgettable. Meghan slowly reached for her water glass, her hands still shaking. Slightly she took a sip, then placed it back down. "I need time," she said, "to think, to reflect." "You'll have that," Whoopi said gently, and she meant it, because for all the heat that had filled the room, there was still space for grace. Still space for growth. And maybe that's what this had all been leading to. Not a takedown, not a viral clip, but a reckoning. The kind that doesn't happen in royal palaces or publicists. Unguarded space where real accountability lives. Joy folded her hands on the desk, not smug, not victorious, just quiet. "You've got a platform, Meghan," she said at last. Meghan gave a small nod. Nothing more, nothing less. And then the lights. It wouldn't be forgotten, because for once, someone tried to tell their story and was met not with blind applause, but with real questions, real challenges, and a real mirror. And the whole world was watching.